And good evening. Welcome to the workshop for the Marion City Council for the City of Taneytown for the month of June 2021. We'll begin with our pledge of the flag. I'll ask Councilmember Foster to lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Foster. Let the records reflect that all council members are present and accounted for this evening. And in taking one further step towards normalcy, we actually have a gallery here. The meeting is open to the public as well as being live streamed. Moving right into it, I'm going to bring up the minutes for the May 5th and May 10th, 2021 regular meetings. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented to you, Council? All right. Hearing none, both sets of minutes will be up for adoption on Monday. I'll ask the council if they have any conflicts of interest on agenda items this evening.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, I did on the new business, the recognition for hire Director Taneytown.
You have a conflict there? Very good. Let that be noted that Councilman Hale has a conflict of interest regarding new business number 5, recommendation for hire. All right, moving into our resolutions, ordinances, and agreements. We're going to start with Resolution 2021-09. This is our monthly water allocation, this being for the month of June. Any comments or questions regarding the water allocation? All right, hearing no discussion, that as well will be up for your approval on Monday evening. Next, we have our city manager report. To the city manager, what do you have for us this evening?
Couple updates on capital projects. The notice of award and contract documents were sent to PSI for the, the Micro C project. And jumping down to Trevanian Terrace, the stormwater project, beyond what's in the report there, we did hold a pre-construction meeting a couple weeks ago, and the notice to proceed was issued by the county on Monday, so that's going to be rolling along very soon. And that's really kind of the highlights of it. It's been a very busy month on the zoning front, so not a whole lot of new stuff on the project front.
Okay. Any questions for the city manager on his report or the departmental reports this evening? Councilman Vigliotti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the recycling tracking worksheet in the Public Works departmental report, and Jim, if you don't have the information this evening, that's okay. I was just curious as to whether or not we were on track to meet the expected amount of money that we were going to be spending on this. I think it was somewhere in the $55,000, $60,000 range, and based on my math, we're averaging roughly $1,520.25 a month. So I was just wondering whether or not we were on track to meet the expectation.
We'll do the math and have that for you Monday.
Thank you very much.
What was the average you were getting there?
$1,520.25. I took the total so far, divided it by the 4 months that we had, and that was good.
Okay, so by that average math, now I believe summer tends to be a little higher as people are doing more and throwing more stuff out. I mean, that puts us a little over 18,000 for the year if it stays consistent.
Well, that's good.
That is good. We'll see if that works. However, I hope people continue recycling and recycle more. Anything that can be, should be. And keep it out of the landfill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Vigliotti. Departmental reports. I do want to bring up something not in the reports, was brought to my attention today. Our city clerk, Clara, was nominated for the, Municipal Clerk's Honor Roll for 2021, and she was awarded that position on the honor roll. So I do want to congratulate you I think everyone here agrees the work you've done has been amazing, and a lot of this would not happen without you. So it's absolutely.
Congratulations, Clara.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
So she joins a list of, I want to say it was 100 and some clerks from around the country that were awarded a position on that honor roll. And that was conducted by General Code, a company that works on municipality codes. And again, congratulations. We appreciate everything you do. And it's great, considering last month we did have Municipal Clerks Week as well. So it's a good segue right into this one. Up next, we have our legal report. Mr. Gullo, do you have anything for us this evening?
Wanted to give you an update. I know you're going to talk about annexations later, so I wanted to give you the progress of the Sewell annexation. We have been working with them to get the map finalized. You would think it was something simple, but nothing is ever simple. So we actually have the map finalized the way we want it presented. The map would be what you would all vote on when you do the annexation. And we are in the last round of changes to the annexation agreement that we've been working on with the attorney for the Sewells. So I would imagine that if everything is acceptable and you all are still in the same frame of mind, we would be able to put the annexation resolution in at the next meeting or when it's convenient for you. That starts the process, okay? And then it's quite a lengthy process afterwards and kind of involved, but that would be the start of the process. So that kind of gives you that idea. And to give you the follow-up on the Trevanion Terrace deed, I know I've been telling you that's been dragging on and on. It's finally at the county collection office, the tax office, and since the city manager did the work with the county to get all the taxes worked out, it should be going to the courthouse for recording, and the deed for the easement that we need to give, since we don't own it yet, but the deed for the easement will be recorded for the project as soon as the first deed gets recorded. So as everything, the legal things are the ones that are dragging things out, but the project is moving ahead. Anything else? I can answer any questions that you might have.
Counsel for the city attorney this evening. Okay, I think you're off the hook. Moving into new business, we have the monthly financial report in your packet. Are there any questions, concerns, comments, general queries on the monthly financial report as presented to you? All right, hearing none, I'll ask the same of the accounts payables as they are presented. All right, everyone seems happy. Both of those will be up for your approval on Monday evening. Next, we have been approached by a property owner requesting annexation into the city. The property in question is 3212 Harney Road. It's approximately 33.3 acres according to the county, or excuse me, according to SDAT. They intend future to develop that property into a small development. I don't have a map to show you, but if you go down Harney Road to Westview Drive, the first road there on your right, there is the property on the left. It has all the kind of dilapidated stone barns and buildings on it. There's a yellow house in the corner. That is the property in question. I believe it was the old Harner property. It has been purchased, and they would like to develop it. In order to do so, they're requesting annexation. So I want to kind of open that up, see if there's interest or questions regarding this and whether you want to direct staff to move forward with that. Go ahead, Councilman.
This is a question for Jim, but if we consider this, are we going to run into any issues with MDE again? Because I remember capacity.
No new
was
issues.
I remember capacity was a conversation recently, so.
And those capacity concerns are still out there with the planned Meadowbrook Sewer Interceptor replacement project or relining and replacement. We do anticipate a substantial decrease in our inflow and infiltration and flows overall at the plant. So we should be able to accommodate the Sewell annexation and development, and probably an additional development of that size if the numbers are close to what's projected. I certainly would feel better about it once it's in the ground and we have some actual data rather than engineering numbers, but we definitely will have to tackle that before we can develop the project. We will not be able to, and the same thing goes with the Sewell property. I mean, we have a plan in place where we're going to speak to that in the Water and Sewer Master Plan Amendment. But again, we will definitely need to get MDE's buy-in on those numbers for that I&I reduction in order to reclass the area from long-range service area to priority. Capacity is still a concern, and we will, of course, have to associate recharge acreage with one of our wells to increase our permit allocation to be able to provide water for it. So those are all things that'll have to be worked out in an annexation plan and agreement going forward, if we do choose to move forward.
So if we chose to move forward with it, Mr. Merritt, have they given us a timeline for how soon they'd like to develop?
Not given us a timeline, and they're also willing to come in and speak to the council if you want to receive that delegation to hear more about it. I do want to kind of, just so we don't put cart before horse, annexation is not a green light to develop. So simply bring the property in does not say it's going to be developed now or even 5 or 10 years in the future. Keep in mind, this property may be easier to annex alongside the Sewell property. Would you not agree, Mr. Weepick or Mr. Gallo?
I think they'd have to be planned together. You know, I don't think you should try to do them both, the annexations at the same time. But if you're going to do the other one, you'd want to make sure you did it while the Sewell property was being planned, if that makes any sense. If you wait and say, well, we'll bring them in later, Sewell's roads may not connect. So it needs to be kind of regionally planned. And you really shouldn't hold up one, because the problem with developers is they may or may not work together. One could come in now and build, and one could come in 10 years from now, but you'd have to look at it as, when it all is finished and said and done, will it work and be connectivity? So that's the goal of trying to say, yeah, you want to do it now.
Property is that it does have frontage on Taneytown Pike, 140. So if we did have an interest in having a corridor that connects Harney Road at the Sewell property connecting to Taneytown Pike, this property would be necessary for that to connect through if we chose to do so. Mr. Weepick, you had something?
Just as far as the idea of tying them together, I agree with the city attorney that for the annexation process that we would move forward with the Sewells because we've already started down that path with that as the single property owner. And I think it would muddy the waters to try to annex the two as some kind of package deal. But again, as far as the development planning goes, we certainly should look at it as an entire area to make sure that we have some connectivity between the two properties and that we're not designing two little islands unto themselves. So from that perspective, it would be beneficial to know if this additional property was going to be part of the city or not.
So their intent, though, in pursuing the annexation is that they would want to see some kind of development residentially there. And okay, so I know you talked a little bit about MDE. I mean, is there even like a general idea about how many houses would go into a small development on a 30-some acre plot?
We haven't seen any concepts for it yet, and I don't really know the, while I am picturing the land as being relatively level, I don't know if there are any water courses on the property or anything like that that may limit the developable area. So
I guess, I know the mayor sort of alluded to it, but I guess my concern would be more so from a traffic perspective. I mean, we're loading up that end of town, it seems, and maybe my concerns are unfounded, but I just worry about, the amount of houses that would go in and the number of vehicles that would add to our roads. I certainly take the point that, if we did annex the property, It might be 5 or 10 years before it got developed into something residential, if it occurred at all. I guess I'm just a little concerned, not just from the MDE perspective, as Councilman Haynes had mentioned, but also from the perspective of traffic too. I certainly have no problem talking about it more, but right now I wouldn't say that I would be comfortable with saying, yeah, let's go ahead and pursue annexation right this second.
I guess the question I'm going to ask is, would you prefer to entertain a delegation to tell you about what they're looking for?
Oh, yes, I'd certainly be okay with it.
I'd be of the same opinion.
That be acceptable?
My one major question would be if they're open to developing anything other than housing.
Definitely something that can be asked of them. So we'll arrange with the property owners for them to come in and present a delegation to you, and you can grill them with your questions at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay?
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jay.
All right, next, we have a request for honorary street sign. I'm going to hand this over to Councilwoman Foster to present.
Okay, in your packet, there's a mock-up of what we have in mind. Councilwoman Fuller and myself presented this to the mayor a few weeks ago. He thought it was a good idea, as we do. And in the mock-up, it shows the different styles that the sign would be. We thought we would erect it on a pole owned by the city, which is right outside City Hall here. The reason there too is that we would erect one sign and give the recipient the other one as a memento. It's a smaller sign. And we have it here for your approval. And questions, comments, if you have any.
Well, we'll start with the quote in front of you, everybody. You see 4 different lines. The 2 options, there's the black and yellow, and then the customary brown and white sign. My recommendation to the council, if you see fit, would be to do the brown sign. That is more traditional for an honorary street name like this. And I believe it would also be less chance of being confused with some of our street signs downtown that have the same scroll feature as the top. On the quote in front of you, the first 2 items are the large versions of the signs, so you would choose one of those. Then the bottom are the smaller versions, and you would choose the matching. The one thing that was noted before the meeting is that these quotes are for single-sided signs. And I think if we wanted to do this in a manner perpendicular to the street, we'd want it to be double-sided. So it would be more. It probably wouldn't be double, but it would be more.
Could I ask Councilwoman Foster and Councilwoman Fuller if either of you have a preference for either the design or the size of the sign?
Well, the mayor just pointed out that the one he suggested was more in line with what we have, you said? I actually like the one with the scroll.
Scroll, but I believe many of the street signs downtown after streetscape were made to look like that. Is that correct? So I want to make sure that we don't create confusion from existing street signs to an honorary street sign.
I'm of the opinion that consistency is worth the risk there. I like the one with the scroll as well. But I take your point.
So can I pursue that point a little bit? If we did go ahead with the scroll design, I guess what sort of confusion could there be? I mean, it says Main Street on it. We would know it would be.
Yeah, I think most people call downtown Main Street anyway, even though it's, East and West Baltimore Street. Nobody really calls it that, so.
Understood. I think my reason for bringing it up that way is for it to be visible, as I mentioned, the sign would be perpendicular to the street. If you look at Middle Street, of course, that sign is perpendicular to East Baltimore Street because that's where you turn for Middle Street. You're putting another sign that looks just like that up as an honorary, but it's not a street sign, if you know what I mean. So, in that case, it's almost like we're naming the pathway in the parking lot this. That would be, I just want to err on the side of being cautious that I don't want to be confused with official street signs as opposed to the honorary. That's my point.
Question,
Answer.
graphically nitpicky, but I feel like this could also help maybe be a compromise. Does the sign have to be black? Could it be blue? Because I mean, blue and yellow are the city's colors. I don't know if it would work if you made it like a dark, almost navy blue.
It's up to council to discuss. I'll stay out of that.
Well, if the councilwoman suggested the sign with the scroll is probably the way to go, I think, maybe if we altered the colors a little bit to be more distinguishable from what we have, I think that would be a good compromise.
Since it's honorary, we can make it look a little more locally patriotic, I guess.
Brown and yellow. Instead of black, have it
I
brown.
mean, the brown
Oh.
sign and the yellow script.
Yeah. So for the black and yellow one with the scroll, instead of black, have it brown. Would that be, brown and yellow go together quite well. I think the Padres have gotten away with it for many years.
I don't know, I guess, Judy, we have to see it.
I feel like the colors go well, but you also want legibility, and I think
Yeah,
brown.
see, the black pops more.
I also think the blue pops as well.
The dark background with the yellow.
I know I'm biased because my campaign signs were blue and yellow.
Right.
But, I mean, it works, so.
Tim, are the street signs that we have now, are they the exact same colors? Do you know? Are you
Trying
looking
to,
right now?
Trying to spot one
I
now.
think they're a dark brown and almost cream, like an off-white.
White script.
Drive through Google Maps to find one.
Trying to, yes.
view right now.
So, yeah, it's, in this image, it looks more black and cream.
Or by now it's cream. I mean, it's been up there for how many years?
I can find out if they can do some alternate color choices and just,
Yeah,
And I mean, if you're looking for consistency, I see where you're coming from with that. Just keep in mind, if this is a practice that we get into, how many of this style are you willing to have around the city?
I think this is beautiful, honestly. Yeah, I'd be in favor of all the signs looking like this, scroll-wise and all that, yeah.
I
But
think everybody likes the scroll.
I'm in favor of exploring other color options. I stand firm on the whole blue and gold bit, that's just me, but, Awesome.
Judy, can we find that out by Monday?
I hope so.
So that we can sort of move ahead?
Yeah, we'll see. I'll give it a shot.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Moving on. This evening, I am prepared to make a recommendation to the council to hire a director of planning and zoning. As you know, it's been quite a while that we've been without one or had someone filling 10 different roles in his position, and Mr. Weeprick, we're very thankful for that. We went through 3 rounds of hiring, trying to find the right candidate, and I believe we have, and the candidate that I wish to recommend is none other than Daryl Hale. So I would like to bring that up for discussion.
Mayor, if you don't mind, well, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to recuse myself from this conversation and in fact leave the chamber while you all discuss this.
Councilman, you are free to leave the chamber as we discuss accordingly. As he does so, I'm going to kind of give you the justification for how we came to this decision. We had various applicants for this position over several months. Many of them demanded a far greater salary than we were able or willing to pay. And a lot of them brought good qualifications, but I don't feel they were pertinent to the city of Taneytown. And we received the resume from Mr. Hale, and as we thought about it, and before we brought him into an interview, I thought it was appealing to have somebody so familiar with the city, who has been dedicated to the city, has been in many roles with us. And given his past work experience like he had, I think it would fit well in this. I think his relationships with city staff has been positive. So I feel that this is the best recommendation I can make, and I'd like to ask the council if they have any comments or questions about that.
Surprised knowing what it's going to entail that he actually volunteered.
Yeah, he did submit a resume in the final round, which again, I was glad to see, especially looking at some of the background, that he really does have a lot of pertinent experience in this sort of a thing. There's still some education that he's going to have to receive, but the good news is we have the former planning and zoning director still on staff and would be his direct supervisor anyway. So there's a wealth of knowledge that can be passed on to him through that as well. But I think the most appealing thing to me is, we interviewed people from many different areas, and I just don't feel that their experiences really apply to the city of Taneytown. Not saying that we're real unique, but we are a bit unique in being able to do this. And actually, if you consider, Mr. Wieprecht came kind of the same path. He came into that role from council and did a tremendous job in that role for many years. And I think that kind of speaks to our ability to get someone familiar and dedicated to the city into that role, I think will be great.
Mr. Mayor, if I might begin a conversation.
Yes.
I am quite comfortable if Daryl should, be voted into the position. I think it's a sound choice. The last couple of years in the city, we've had a number of new departmental heads come in after others have retired. And I think that it is important not just to have new, but to also have, as Councilman Haynes and I have talked about in the past in our meetings, institutional wisdom. Part of what appeals to me about Daryl stepping into the role of planning and zoning is that his time as a councilman, not just this term, but previously, he is somebody who is, to quote the old saying, he's not afraid to roll up his sleeves and put his own hands into the earth. Just the first summer that he was on, he was out there himself weed whacking courts to make sure that they could be used by kids in time for the summer season. I know that in the past, he, in our discussions about town and things that he and I would like to see for the future of the town, he has something that City Manager Wieprecht also has, and that's the ability to be able to talk about a given property or a given set of circumstances with respect to a property in a manner that is merely beyond the address. Like if you were to ask Jim about any given property, he could tell you who the previous owner was, what the history of the property was, that sort of thing. And Daryl is largely the same way. He's able to talk about things in a very in-depth and personal way. And, whereas with economic development or Parks and Rec, you might want some newness, I think with planning and zoning, you want somebody who knows the city, who knows the history of the city, and who lives here too, because any decisions that he reaches with us is going to be affecting him as well. So I am comfortable with Daryl, and I certainly think that he's a good recommendation.
All right, well said. Any other input from council? Thoughts and opinions?
With all due respect, I think the two of you are preaching to the choir. I think it's a great idea. So.
Very good. Well, then I'll take the hint and stop discussing. With that, keep in mind that if you do select him on Monday in that position, it will create a vacancy, and that will be determined how that'll be filled once it happens. But keep that in mind, and I'll have discussions with the Mayor Pro Tem regarding that process between now and then, if you so choose. If there's nothing else, then I'll invite Councilman Hale back into the chambers if he can. I'm sure he has a glass up to the door listening in anyway. All right, welcome back. We're moving on to our next item. This is the comprehensive plan update. I believe Mr. Wieprecht is prepared to discuss this.
Regardless of what decision might be made Monday evening, we are behind the 8 ball on updating our comprehensive plan. While we made some efforts a couple years ago to nibble away at it chapter by chapter. Those efforts have kind of come to a standstill. And with the city's growth and talks of annexing additional properties, our capacity issues, and the various state environmental regulations that we're up against regarding that capacity, we really do need to have a solid plan in place that speaks to all of the current plan elements required by the state. Ours is 10 years old, well, 11 years old now, and the water resources element was not as well developed as it may have been at that point. So I think that we're in a situation where we really are going to need to outsource this to get it done. We just, right now, we don't have the in-house capacity to do it on our own. And I think some expertise is going to help us gain some additional public input, do a better job of outreach probably than, while we can put it out there on Facebook and in the Taneytown Record and talk about it, I think we may be better served by having a consultant who does this routinely to generate some interest and some buzz and some participation and really develop this as with the public input that it's supposed to have. When we've tried it on our own in the past, we kind of had the same handful of individuals usually who had some property interest in the plan to make sure that their property was designated the way they wanted it in the plan. And we really haven't had a tremendous amount of public input as really is desirable in a comp plan. So I'd like you guys to think about that. What I'm envisioning is just putting out a brief request for qualifications and then interviewing a couple different companies to see who seems to be the best fit. At that point, we may develop a bit more detail as to exactly what we're looking for. If we want, a particular emphasis on economic development or, a particular aspect of the plan or something. But right now, I'm just looking for some support, I guess, with the idea of outsourcing it. And I should say right up front, we did not budget to pay a consultant to do this, so we would be looking at a budget amendment in FY22.
Jim, did we reach out to MML on this about how to go about finding such a company, or maybe they had some?
I have not, but I certainly can do that before we make a move.
Definitely exhaust all the resources available to us. Any other comments or questions? Mayor Pro Tem Vigliotti.
And Jim, I know there's certainly a professional aspect to this, but I was wondering maybe if when you are trying to feel this out, if you would be willing to ask whoever it is interested in coming up with one of these, maybe it's a little old-fashioned, but asking them what personal investment they might have in this. Because, it's one thing to hire somebody, but I want somebody who's going to be devoted to the town and coming up with something this substantial.
Well, it would be a coordination with, obviously, our planning commission. We would have members of staff and most likely at least one member of the council involved in this as well. I mean, it's not going to be a go do this, bring it back when you're done. There's going to be some coordination there.
All right, I just want to make sure that the company itself is not just looking at us as, we're a check and then they're going to move on. Like, I want them to be, devoted to working with us and devoted to seeing things through for the town. If that makes sense.
I understand the thought. That may be a bit of a stretch, I think, to find someone with that kind of a more personal stake in it. But the process is going to be very very interactive with the Planning Commission. So certainly, and ultimately, the Planning Commission prepares the plan. The consultant would be more of a facilitator and somebody to take their ideas, put it into text, come back, what do you think about this? And And again, we would like to get some public input as well, beyond just that of the Planning Commission, so that we hear from our citizens as to what they see for the town, for the city for the next 10 years. But while the plan would be, I guess, formally drafted by the consultant, it will be based on the input of the public and the Planning Commission. Ultimately, the Planning Commission has the final say in what goes into the plan and what they put forward to you for approval ultimately. So it's not that the consultant's going to come in, meet with us once or twice, and then walk away and write a plan and, put this, throw the book back down on the desk a couple months later. So.
I just wanted to make sure, and thank you for that, Jim. It's good to know that the public is going to have a say, and it's good to know that our own planning commission will have a say. So thank you for that, Mr. Mayor.
It'll be a coordinated effort. I think what we want from somebody is someone with the experience to assemble these plans. Mr. Weeper talked about the outreach aspect of it, and that goes along with our desire to be a very transparent government. We want the public input. I want us to find somebody that can assemble the plan based on what comes in, but when it comes to the following of and the execution of the plan, that's going to fall on Planning Commission and the council. So that's going to be the key. They're going to come, they're going to help us assemble, and then essentially they are going to walk away because we hired them to do a job, they did the job, and now they've presented us with something that we will be happy with to move forward for the next 10 years. Other questions, concerns?
I have one, if that's okay.
Question or concern?
Question. So, Jim, are you looking more for assistance with the outreach aspect or compiling the plan itself? Or are they both equally as? Okay.
Would say so.
Okay.
And there are some elements that are required now that our current plan lacks.
Yeah.
And having some expertise in having developed plans specifically, though, if we find somebody who has worked in Maryland and is familiar with Maryland's visions and working with the Department of Planning, that would certainly be helpful if they've worked in the state before.
Okay. Then I would echo Diane and really stress going through MML first before we.
With that, on Monday night, I guess the request of the council will be to ask city staff to move forward with advertising a position or getting a list of candidates for that. Is that correct?
Well, just looking for some direction Monday
direction,
night regarding the outsourcing in general, and then we'll move forward with certainly we'll contact MML in the meantime, but we will explore some options, come back before we formally advertise anything, I think.
Perfect.
Want the compass heading right now.
Don't move too far from your mic because up next we have the Memorandum of Agreement for the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES.
Okay, so I talked about this a bit a couple months ago. The Water Resources Coordination Council has been reviewing the document that is in effect currently, and I realized after that month that many of you were not on board when we executed that original memorandum of agreement with the county. So I thought it best to get it before you in its entirety, the current draft. And basically what we're looking at is a cost share with the county where they provide 80% of the cost of these stormwater retrofit projects that are required under the NPDES permit. They also provide NPDES compliance specialists. They have 2 staff positions that we help pay for through our town-county agreement. So we are basically co-permittees on the agreement with all the other municipalities and the county. And we also cost share with some of the staff that's dedicated to permit compliance. With changes anticipated in the next generation NPDES permit, there's going to be more more municipal effort required, more reporting required. The retrofit portion has gone from doing a percentage of your impervious treatment during the life of the permit to a 2% per year rather than a 5% per the permit. So these permits may come out and say they're good for 5 years, but the new permits tend not to come out at the end of that 5-year period. And then when the new permits come out, they tend to be challenged, and then that slows the rollout of the next permit. So we're now, I think, in year 7 of our last 5-year permit. So what we're trying to do with this agreement is not tie it to a specific permit, but make it an ongoing agreement. So the agreement regarding the cost share and the Water Resources Coordination Council's role and the municipal versus county responsibilities will remain fixed regardless of what happens with each NPDES permit, with each generation of the permit. So we don't want to have to come back every so many years with potentially new mayors and councils and boards of county commissioners and have to sell this partnership every 5 to 6 years. So the changes from the agreement that we have currently to the one that's before you in the packet, and again, this is still in draft form. It's going to be discussed at this month's Water Resources meeting. But the idea basically is this agreement will remain in place and the permits will come and go, but the agreement stays rather than being linked to the specific permit like the original was. Not a whole lot is changing other than language that kind of separates it from the specific permit. But there is one, I think, somewhat substantial change for those of you who have been around for a bit, and that is in, it's on page 6 in number 5E. And that basically talks about each municipality in the county having representatives to the Water Resources Coordination Council. And it makes it incumbent on that representative to share information with their respective elected officials and then essentially be their delegate to the Water Resources Coordination Council. So to put it in context of this this draft and the cost chart that was included in your packet, it would be each municipality's or each entity's representative's responsibility to keep their elected body informed of changes to that table. So the agreement, again, stays in place, but then with each permit, the expectation is the table regarding the finances for the life of that permit will change. So currently, I'm your representative to the Water Resources Coordination Council, and Kevin Smeek is our backup. So Kevin and I attend, Kevin or I, usually me, sometimes both of us, attend the meetings. We would have to come back, propose, share any proposed changes to the table and get your authority to then, vote at the WRCC meetings to approve or vote against any table updates. So that's something that is a bit of a shift from the original agreement. I think it really just more clearly spells out that role. It's not, functionally, it's not all that different from the way things work anyhow, because for the most part, it's either the director of public works or a city manager that is the representative to the WRCC from each municipality. And they are kind of tasked with keeping the electeds informed. So this just kind of formalizes it. So that is a bit of a shift from the original agreement. But as I said, we will be back to you next month with a final, or I'll be back to you next month with a final agreement for you to vote on. And the hope is that at the July Water Resources meeting that we'll be able to approve the memorandum of understanding and start circulating it for signatures. So sorry to be a little long-winded about that, but it's the NPDES permit is very involved. A lot of effort goes into remaining compliant, and Carroll is one of, I think we may be the only Phase 1 jurisdiction that actually met our permit terms for the last permit. We're way ahead of most of the state as far as completing our retrofit projects and everything, so Carroll has a lot to be proud of with regard to the permit and the cooperation that we have between the municipalities and the county government as well. So all that said, just kind of scrolling down a little farther, the chart that's at the end of that shows our portion of the cost going forward. And with the annual restoration requirement dropping, our contribution to permit compliance and the stormwater projects has dropped a bit as well. I spoke a little bit more to that a couple months ago, but the charts there, you can see, what each municipality pays into it. And this is, we won't be cutting a check to the county. This will be adjusted in our town-county agreement that comes out every year. So the cost of helping to pay for the NPDES compliance specialists at the county and the cost of these retrofit projects gets deducted from our tax offset in our town-county agreement. So that's how we pay for it each year. But the chart that's in your packet, let's see, page 74 in your packet, kind of highlights the city's contribution. And that's just kind of setting the stage for next month, when hopefully the final agreement will be before you for a vote. And that said, if you would like to have someone from the county come and speak in more detail or present anything about the agreement, we can certainly set that up for next month.
All right, anyone on council have questions? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jim, on page 8, number 7, the MOA talks about how each municipality will develop a salt management plan in accordance with the permit. So I was wondering if that is something that we already have. If not, what is it going to involve to develop? And will our development of that plan determine our ability to participate in the town-county agreement? I'm sorry, in the MOA.
We do not have a salt management plan currently. Our Director of Public Works is aware that we need to develop one. And we do have some samples provided by other jurisdictions who have already adopted a salt management plan. So it's by no means a deal breaker for us. We've known it's coming. We just need to formally sit down, put pen to paper, and make it happen. And some of the things involved we're already doing. Knowing that it was coming, we've started to better track salt usage after winter storms and things like that. But with salinity in the watersheds is becoming a big issue. And right now, I don't think there's a specific measurement or a total maximum daily load for salt, but it's anticipated. So these salt management plans, I guess, are the first step in trying to get a handle on that.
Now, is this something that you could foresee the county from time to time saying you have to update this, or we're requiring you to meet certain limits?
Probably more of the
That's
state.
Yeah.
More of the state will set those limits for us. They're really good at setting reasonable and unreasonable limits for things.
And the second of my two questions, Jim, Mr. Mayor, if you'll permit me. On page number 7, under the miscellaneous provisions, on page number 9, under section 7, miscellaneous provisions, the MOA talks about co-permittees and sanctions and penalties imposed for violations that are committed. And so I was just curious if there is a circumstance in which the attribution of the violation is in dispute, like the county says, well, you guys did it, and we say, well, no, the county's responsible for it. How does something like that get adjudicated? And then ultimately, if there is no agreement on who is at fault, what happens?
Well, the MOA does lay out each party's responsibilities. So there shouldn't be confusion over that. But in the event that, say, there was some issue and MDE was going to levy fines and it was determined that it was a Taneytown issue, I would imagine that, well, as the MOA states, the other jurisdictions, the other co-permittees will not be responsible for something that's the fault of another co-permittee. So we would basically be in a situation to start negotiating with MDE to try to talk the fines down or get out of them altogether.
Oh, and I take that point. I'm just if there's a disagreement between two over who's the cause. I mean, I know the responsibilities and everything are laid out, but specifically, if two parties are in disagreement about if two participants are in confusion about who caused the issue.
And again, I think if it was something that was not clear in the MOA, I would imagine both sides would refer to their attorneys as the first step for clarification or interpretation of the MOA. And it would probably ratchet up to the elected official level and then probably back to the attorney level again. I would certainly hope we would not be in that situation, but and hopefully the MOA does indeed spell things out clearly enough. It does not, speak to every single line item that's in the NPDES permit, but I think it does a good job of laying out what the county is to do, what each co-permittee is going to do. And so it should be pretty clear if somebody drops the ball and it results in some punitive measures from MDE.
And then, Mr. Mayor, if I just have one quick comment to make in general.
Before you do so, I'm going to just speak to that. In our county, where our municipalities are rather spread out, I don't think we could run into any issues where it's, well, the runoff from you affected ours. That I don't see that as being a potential. I think it's rather cut and dry. It's within our corporate limits. Per this, it's our responsibility to do X, Y, Z. And if the results aren't what they're supposed to be, we would ultimately be responsible, or they have to talk to our attorney, and he does things that, yeah. Continue, comment.
And that makes sense. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Mayor. And Jim, thank you for that as well. And the final comment I'd like to make is that I noticed earlier in the MOA, and Jim, you referenced earlier about how the idea with this is to set something in perpetuity. And I know that there might be concerns among future mayors and councils about whether or not this is the right thing. I do want to say that one thing that makes me feel comfortable about entering into that kind of perpetual agreement is that there is a clause in here where any municipality has the right to withdraw at any time as they see fit. So it's not like our decision to step into this is going to necessarily bind every future mayor and council to stick with it no matter what. So that, that doesn't make me feel very comfortable. That does make me feel very comfortable about this.
I think the important thing is, absent of being a part of this agreement, you're essentially on your own island. You're still subject to the same requirements by the state, but you don't have this commission backing you up, as well as kind of the sharing of municipalities as a member of this. So if future elected leaders decided they wanted to be on their own island and not participate, play well in the sandbox, I'm going to go ahead and say preemptively that they're fools. I think this is a great thing county's doing. Jim mentioned that the county's done tremendous jobs across the state of how they've handled things, and locally, I believe we're doing quite well also. So.
I agree. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Any other questions or comments? Okay. All satisfied. Thank you, Mr. Wieprick, for all of that. Number 8, special event approval. This one may seem familiar to you. We've had it in the past. Uniontown Bible Church likes to put on a soccer camp for the community. It is potentially scheduled for June 28th to July 2nd, if approved by the council. It'll take place at Roberts Mill Park. You'll see on the application, I believe everything is in order. It has already been approved by Public Works as well as the Police Department. Are there any questions or comments from the City Council regarding this application? Okay, that will be up for your approval on Monday evening. And lastly, it has been requested by our Parks and Rec Director that we award a contract for the parking lot demolition and construction at Taneytown Memorial Park. You'll see that there is a memo included. And, hang on, let me scroll down. Jim, go ahead with a recommendation, because am I missing a page?
The recommendation is to award to HTI contractors for $203,553.75.
Right over that page, did not see it. We did receive several bids for this project, and that is the one recommended by the Director of Parks and Rec. Are there any questions or concerns? For those not familiar and for those tuning in at home, this is for the parking lot at Memorial Park. As soon as you pull in on Park Drive, it's the one immediately to the left. During severe snowstorms, it's generally piled high with snow and salt, hence the reason it's in the condition that it's in today. It is used a lot, especially during the football season, during our Wine Fest and other events, tournaments that take place down there. It's a well-used parking lot, and it looks like it's been well-used. So it's long overdue for being repaired. The standards by which we hope to have it repaired are better than what it was built earlier. So hopefully it'll last longer and withstand some of the heavier traffic that it has seen. So once again, questions, concerns, comments? Accusations of I could do it better? Nothing.
I think it's time that parking lot got repaired.
Past time, you're right.
Out of curiosity, I mean, with respect to that, putting snow there, I mean, I know snow and the salt and the gravel from the roads is damaging. I mean, is there another place that we could put excess snow during major storm events that would not necessarily deteriorate that parking lot? Or is the new parking lot going to be able to withstand that kind of?
Well, there's a house on Grand Drive, I'd like to put it.
We have talked about some alternative locations, and Public Works was open to some suggestions there. So, again, this parking lot is going to be a bit more robust than the current one as far as how it was constructed or how it will be constructed. But we've also looked at some other locations of city property that we could potentially dump the snow and avoid having all of it go down to Memorial Park.
Anyone else? Okay, everyone is satisfied. I will note for the city clerk, Monday evening, I would like you to add to the agenda that I will be appointing liaisonships on Monday evening. I plan on changing them for the council, so be prepared. If you want to preempt it with discussions, I encourage you to call me and we can have those conversations. With nothing else, I will seek a motion to adjourn. And do I have a second, please? All right, moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Didn't think so. Good night.